Who finishes fourth in the NFC West? And I know it comes down to two teams. Is it the Cardinals or the Seahawks?
I'm going to go with the Seahawks here.
This Seahawks nonsense just has me totally rattled. I mean, I'm shaken to the core. What are you doing, my friend? Colin, Seahawks? New offensive lineman? New offensive coordinator?
They've had a very good camp.
Sam Darnold? Colin, I'm looking at their... do you want to guess how many times they're favored in their first 6 games? Once.
And so if my predictions are correct, the number 1 team would be the Rams, 2 would be the 49ers, 3 the Seahawks, and 4 the Arizona Cardinals.
Seattle could find itself in turbulent skies.
I've been watching a few prediction videos of the NFC West, and I don't really understand what some people are talking about, so I thought I'd just do my own. Starting with a rundown of the team I think are going to finish 4th, right through to the team that I think are going to finish 1st. So I think the Arizona Cardinals are going to finish 4th in the NFC West. I don't really understand why some people see them as a bit of an upstart team that can make a bit of noise. And I'm going to go in a different direction with this, because whenever I hear people actually criticizing the Arizona Cardinals or trying to sort of pour cold water on their fire, it's often, well, I don't believe in Kyler Murray, and that's the reason why I don't think they're going to do anything. I actually think Kyler Murray's all right. Like I can never imagine Kyler Murray winning a Super Bowl, but on his day, Kyler Murray can be quite creative. He's got some physical talent. He's got an arm. He can move around. He can beat you anytime he takes the field. So I don't think he's the problem. And he's got, a fantastic tight end to throw to in Trey McBride. Marvin Harrison could be more than he was as a rookie this year. And I think generally their offense is okay. I think the main problem that I have with the Cardinals is they may well have a defensive-minded head coach, and Jonathan Gannon may be a very good defensive-minded head coach, but they just don't have any stars, really. Like Budda Baker's a fantastic player. He's been a fantastic player for a long time. But who is the difference maker on that defense? Who is going to strike fear in the opponent when the Arizona Cardinals come to town? It feels a little bit to me when they are going to play the top teams, they're probably going to have to outscore them. And I just don't know if they are good enough to do that. On their day, they can probably beat anybody. But I don't think they have enough star power on defense to sort of feel that this is a team that's going to threaten the playoffs. I think they're going to finish 4th in this division, and that's what I'm going with. 3rd place team. I am going to go for the San Francisco 49ers. I don't understand why they're the odds makers favorites for the division. We are looking at a team who feel very much like the 2017 Seahawks to me, that they have had a great era. You have to give a lot of respect to the GM and the head coach. They've done a very, very good job. They've built a strong team. They've drafted well, with the exception of Trey Lance, but having made the mistake with Trey Lance, and it was a mistake, and that's not speaking after the fact, I thought it was a mistake at the time. They've managed to find another quarterback with the last pick in the 7th round. So you have to give them a lot of credit. When they were at their best, they had a dominant defensive line. They had loaded full of blue chip players. The Trent Williams trade was inspired. So was the Christian McCaffrey trade. So they had a great run. But having got to 2 Super Bowls, they didn't win either of them. If they'd have just won one of those games, then you would have said this was a highly, highly successful era in San Francisco 49ers football. But they didn't win either of those. And it just isn't going to go on forever. They just can't keep plodding along and being a contender. Eventually, it catches up with you. And that's what it was with the Seahawks. They made a couple of Super Bowls. They won one of them. They were still competitive for 2015, 2016. But you could see that the regression was beginning by the end of 2016 and going into 2017. And I just feel that's where we are with the Niners. They've brought back Robert Saleh. He's going to be a very good coach on the defense. But apart from Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, I don't think they've done a good enough job replenishing the stocks on the defense. They do have some good players, some good young players, but perhaps not enough loaded stars on offense. Christian McCaffrey's getting older now. Is he going to be healthy for the whole year? Kittle's getting older. Trent Williams is another year older. apart from him, there's nothing that remarkable about the offensive line. They've got injuries galore at receiver, to the fact that they're having to make trades for Sky Moore, who has been a bust so far in the NFL. And having paid Brock Purdy now, there's a bit more pressure on him. You know, he's no longer that sort of plucky young quarterback who is a great storyline. He is now somebody who is going to have to live up to the financial expectations that come with him. And Kyle Shanahan has been a great head coach. I have an immense amount of respect for Kyle Shanahan and everything that he's achieved. But I just don't think this can go on forever. And maybe last season was the start of the decline. And maybe now, going into this season, especially with all of the injury issues on offense, maybe it's just going to be further to that. Maybe it's more of the same from last year and they just missed the playoffs. Maybe it gets a little bit worse. I don't know. I just don't see the Niners winning this division. So for me, they're going to finish third. And then, obviously, as I reveal the second place team, I'm going to reveal the first place team. I think the Rams are going to finish second, but this is with the asterisk that Matt Stafford plays football this year. The Rams are possibly one of the most overrated teams in the NFL. And I say that despite the fact that I've got them at second in the NFC West, which is a tough division. They had the same record as Seattle last year, 10 wins. They had a number of close games. The highlight was obviously that incredible shootout against the Bills. And for that reason, you have to give them credit. But I kind of feel as if we're forgetting that Stafford wasn't very good last season, that he looked as if he was coming to the end. They have now lost Cooper Kupp, and look, I get the fact that he was coming to the end of his time in LA, and they were the ones who made that call. But it's a weapon that they've had in the past that they're not going to have now. They do still have Puka Nacua. Their running game is pretty decent, but they've got a quarterback with a back injury, and their left tackle is out. And I'm not a huge believer in the rest of that offensive line. So to me, it feels as if the performance against Minnesota in the playoffs, which was a very emotional game because of the wildfires, and then the performance in nearly beating the Eagles, and you have to give them credit for the way they fought in that snow game against the Eagles. But I feel as if that is creating this illusion that the Rams are something they're not. They're a good team. They have an elite head coach. I'm just not convinced that Matt Stafford and his bad back and no left tackle and a roster that's got some very good players, some good young players, but it's not a loaded roster. It's not a deep roster. I'm just not sure they're as good as people think. So they will have every chance of getting to the playoffs. I think they'll be competing for the division title, but I don't think they're going to win the NFC West. And I think people are rating them too highly as we go into this NFL season, because I keep seeing things like, well, obviously the Rams are the best, or who is the second best team in the NFC West? And I don't think we should assume that the Rams are going to be the best division in this division, the best team in this division. And that leaves us with first place, and obviously it's the Seahawks. And I'm sure that any stray Niners fans who are watching this will accuse me of being a homer, or if one of the 14 Rams or Cardinals fans that exist online see this, they will do the same. But I think Seahawks fans who've followed Seahawks Draft Blog for a long time or follow this channel will know that I am not a homer. I am not someone who just thinks the Seahawks are going to win the division every year, thinks that everything that they do is amazing. I've been very critical of the Seahawks in the past. I think with just cause. I think there's been reasoning for that. And think a lot of that criticism has been proven to have been extremely fair and accurate. But I do feel incredibly positive about this Seahawks team. I just think there's so many things that have gone right this year. You look at the offensive line, it feels in a much better place than it has been in the last few years. The pick of Gray Zabel, maybe just finishing things off, the coaching that has enabled Anthony Bradford and Jalen Sundell to take a step forward. Abe Lucas looked fantastic against the Chiefs, and if he's back to his full health, can easily be one of the best right tackles in the NFL. Charles Cross is in a big contract year. Well, it's not a contract year, but it's going to be, if he has a great year, he will get a contract at the end of the season, is basically what I'm saying. Sam Darnold just looks very comfortable in this system. That's not a surprise because he's worked with Clint Kubiak before. It feels like even though he has got a little bit more security than he had in the past, that he's still got a point to prove. They've got weapons, and this is the thing, like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett may have gone, but Jackson Smith and Jigba's still there. Cooper Kupp, I think, is a very solid wide receiver too for the Seahawks. And then you've got the emergence of Torrey Horton, Jay Bobo. Is it Derek Young? Is Marcus Valdes-Scantling still going to be there? I think they've got enough to... Maybe they don't have that true third receiver who is like, that's the guy. Like it would have been like Tyler Lockett last year, for example. But I think they've got enough players there who, as a cumulative group, can create the production that needed from a third receiver. Tight ends, I'm very optimistic about. I think Elijah Arroyo can be a fantastic player for the Seahawks. AJ Barner had a good rookie year. Sorbert's, his blocking. That's the other thing. Like the blocking against the Chiefs was fantastic. It looks as if they're fixing the running game. I'm a huge Zach Charbonnet fan. You've got Ken Walker in there as well. Olani's run well in preseason. So I think the offense is looking really good. And they've established who they want to be, what they want to be. I'm a big believer in Clint Kubiak and his very experienced staff. And I'm very optimistic about where the offense is. And then you look at that defense. Well, at the end of last season, the defense was playing as well as any defense in the NFL. And they do have some very, very good players. Leonard Williams is vastly underrated. He was virtually unstoppable towards the end of last season. You are looking at the likes of Ernest Jones Jr., who had a big impact, Devin Witherspoon, Julian Love, again, another very underrated player. I do think it may take a bit of time for Nick Emenwari to settle into his role. But when he gets there, he could be a big X factor for them. Kobe Bryant has really emerged. And then on the defensive line, you've got a lot of young players who have got a point to prove. Boya Maffei's in a contract year. Derek Hall wants to take a big step in year 3. I think DeMarcus Lawrence could be quite an underrated addition to this team. And if he can stay healthy, perhaps he can contribute in a way that perhaps people are sleeping on him a little bit. We're seeing Uchenna Nwosu back on the practice field all of a sudden. And, I'm a huge Jeremy Reed fan, and Byron Murphy has got an opportunity in year 2 to take a step as well. So I think you've got a lot of pieces there. I think you've got a great tactician in Mark McDonald leading the way. And I think on the other side of the ball with Clint Kubiak too. So I'm very optimistic. To me, this is one of the better rosters in the NFL. And what they lack is that sort of elite blue chip talent. Now, if you were going to win a Super Bowl, you do need true elite blue chippers, in my opinion. But I'm not predicting the Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm predicting they're going to win the NFC West. And I think they have more than enough on this roster with their coaches to win the division. Now, if they're going to go any further than that, they're probably going to need a few of these players to step up to the plate and be top elite players. What I would say, though, is I'm not sure you watched the Detroit Lions necessarily, who, by the way, didn't have Aiden Hutchinson for a large stretch last season and still ended up with like a fantastic record and probably should have gone further in the playoffs than they did. You necessarily look at their team. You obviously got Penei Sewell, who's an elite player. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Their running backs are very talented players, very different players, but very talented. Apart from that, are they loaded with blue chip players? Not really. They've got a good roster, a good rounded roster. They know who they are. They know their personality. They know they want to play. Very creative on offense, very tough and physical and hard-nosed on defense. They can run the ball. And they had better record than any other team. So I don't know whether the Seahawks, it's not necessarily going to take 4 or 5 young players becoming elite for the Seahawks to be that kind of a team. I think the NFC is wide open, and I'll finish with a point on that. But to sort of round off my thought on the NFC West is I just think the Seahawks are one of those teams now. They're primed to take the next step. They're younger players with a little bit more experience. I do think 1 or 2 of them, like the Derek Halls, for example, will take another step this year. I think they've got a good mix of youth and experience. Everybody's bought in. There's been no distractions, no drama this year. Everything seems to be running very, very smoothly. So they know who they are. They know what they want. A bit like the Lions. They know who they are. They know what they're trying to do. They know what they want to be. So I think they're going to win the NFC West. And then that will mean they get to the playoffs. In terms of playoff seeding and what they could do once they get to the playoffs, that is going to depend on a few things. But the NFC is such a wide open conference. Everybody said the Eagles are the best, and rightly so. They're the defending Super Bowl champions. But what happened the last time they won a Super Bowl? You could easily have said they had the best roster the following season after that. I think they were like 7-9 for back-to-back years, or 9-7, and then collapsed. So it's not necessarily going to happen again. They still probably have the most star talent in the NFC, but it can be difficult to follow up a Super Bowl win. We'll see what they do. I think they'll probably be okay, and they'll probably get to the playoffs, and they'll be a contender. But you just don't know. And then you look at some of the other teams. You know, I don't think the Minnesota Vikings can sustain what they did last year. I'm not a big JJ McCarthy believer. Detroit, I think it could go either way. They could just come roaring back again, but they have lost some players like Frank Ragnow. They've lost a lot of coaches. Have they maybe sort of missed the boat a little bit? Have they missed their best chance? I don't know. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. They could be strong. They could be taking a little bit of a step back and still be pretty strong within the NFC. So they'll fancy the chances again. I mean, the Bills keep coming back and having another go, so maybe the Lions will. The Commanders, to me, feel a little bit overrated because of the quarterback. But we'll wait and see. You know, they're a developing team. I kind of feel a little bit as if they're maybe being overrated a little bit because of the way that last season finished. But obviously, Jaden Daniels is such an exciting talent. You just don't know. Some of the other teams, I'm trying to think of. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be a tough out for anybody next year. You know, if you have to go and play the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay, I think that will be very difficult. If they have to go on the road, they'll still give you a game, but maybe they can't go toe-to-toe with the very, very best. So the general point is I don't think there are many teams that you'd be scared of facing in the playoffs. I think the one that, if of all the teams, that I'd be probably the most scared about playing are the Packers, because the Seahawks never seem to play the Packers that well. Even at Lumen Field, some of their wins have been a little bit fluky at times, a little bit lucky. Going to Lambeau has been virtually impossible for the Seahawks since I started following them many, many, many years ago. So they're probably the one team that I wouldn't want to play in the playoffs. But apart from that, I think the Seahawks are probably one of, you know, quite a few teams in this conference that will say, if we get to the playoffs, we fancy your chances if everybody stays healthy. So I'm very optimistic about this team. I think they've had the kind of off-season and camp and pre-season that they needed to have. I do think they're going to win the NFC West. I don't know, in terms of the record, how they will position themselves for seeding and how deep they could go in the playoffs just yet. I'll sort of reserve my opinion on that until I've seen a few games. But I do think they're going to win this division. So I'm feeling very optimistic about it, and I think they'll get there. I think they're going to be number one. So let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you agree with any of this? Is there anything that you disagree with? Am I sleeping on anything with the other three teams in the NFC West? Let me know your thoughts. SeahawksDraftBlog.com for more analysis. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Until next time, bye for now.